Hi, and welcome to the podcast. My name is Michael Yon, and this massive episode, is The World Conspiracy. This is a recording that we recorded and published nearing the end of July 2021, and it was a time where everyone knew about COVID. We were all somehow affected by COVID and not knowing exactly what was going to happen. So this recording's about that, and in fact, the start of this recording, which is where Kuntarkis explains to me why he wasn't able to record this episode at the time that we had planned to, the shocking reason why, and how it relates to this entire episode. So, without further ado, here's Kuntarkis. That's good. You must have had a big week to cancel Thursday night. You must have been...
I did, mate. I was too tired, and let me put it this way, Michael. I've said to you on a few occasions that there is a lot more going on, not just in the human world, but in another vibration that we aren't, or most of us aren't aware of. And those beings, once they find out who you are or what your purpose is, they will, at different times, try to intervene in some way, whatever it may be. And I become very aware of that, and I felt very tired that week, so I was quite drained. And the thing was, if I would have went on air, I wouldn't have been able to express well at all. That's one of the reasons why I cancelled it.
And you think it was because of them?
Oh, absolutely.
Wow.
And it's like today, my wife is working a lot more now, and I've been looking after little man a lot more. But I even felt today the presence of this, how would you say, cloud of energy trying to suppress me. And I felt through the day I was starting to get very tired, not irritated, not angry, just very tired. And I said this to my wife when she got home late this afternoon. And I said, yes. I said, I think they've been at it again. I'm starting to feel the same sort of tiredness that I felt Thursday night. Or Thursday, I should say. And I decided, well, I'm going to go and do some exercise. So I went and trained for 2 hours, really went to town. I could still feel the pressure of this energy trying to even destroy my motivation in completing what I want to complete to revitalize my body. But I broke the barrier because no one in any universe has power over me, because I've always known that I am the only power in all things, and everything depends on my thought consciousness, how I feel and how I turn out. And the more we learn to understand that we are the essence of living energy, the more we will succeed in and go beyond what others try to do to us.
So do you think that it's the reptilians that are trying to suppress you?
Absolutely.
And they obviously can tell when a bit of positive energy or positive something is popping up, and they're like, oh, let's squash that before it takes off.
Mate, if you knew the conspiracy or conspiracies that are going on around the entire globe in every moment of every breath, it would just blow your mind to what is occurring on this earth. It is scary to a point of what could eventuate down the track, and how far governments right around the world will intimidate with threats because of the reason why and what's behind it. And I think there are hundreds of millions of people in this world who right at this moment know that this is a complete setup worldwide. They know it. For what real reasons, I think many don't. But the amount of people now doing research and finding out a lot more physical reasons is starting to show as the evidence comes out. And that's really interesting. And it's not just like 1 million people. I'm talking that tens of millions of people worldwide are awake to what is occurring with governments and also with massive, powerful businesses that are so rich. And I'm talking hundreds of billions of trillions of dollars they make out of the people worldwide. It's just incredible. So that's going to be a bit of our topic tonight. Not just government conspiracies, but business conspiracies that are literally using the government all around the world, pressuring them, but also using them as puppets. Even the police force have no idea what really is going behind the scenes. And that's what I'm going to talk about.
Wow. And so the general overtone with this is that the negativity stems back to the reptilians. That's where it's mainly coming from.
Absolutely.
Right. And that's governments, that's ultra-rich families. They're all kind of being influenced by the reptilians in one way or another. Absolutely.
And this is the worst conspiracy in human history. Before, when there was a conspiracy, it was pretty open. But this runs so deep, like the old saying, how deep is the rabbit hole? Now, my question would be directly to the public. How do you want to live your life? Do you want to live your life, what you have now, that you've worked all your life, or half your life, or a quarter of your life, towards set goals and become better as the years go on? Or do you want to take on the fears that these mongrels are trying to put upon us and fall into their fearful dead trap? That's the question we have to ask ourselves. Do we want freedom or do we want death? Sounds very grim, but that is the ultimate truth. If we don't take back our power, we're going to die.
So you're talking about banding together so that we can...
All people need to do is petitions, talk to their local MPs, but hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people worldwide, millions, have to do this. If 1 million people, Michael, went and walked right up to Canberra tomorrow morning, let's say 1 million people that knew that this was fake, what would those government representatives do? There are not enough police in the entire country to round up 1 million people, let alone say we're going to put you in prison and charge you. Those people have the right to protest. If the government says you can't, then the government is wrong. People have the right to protest. People have the right for freedom of speech, as long as it doesn't hurt another physically, emotionally, or mentally.
So you're speaking about protesting the choice to not have the vaccine.
Absolutely. And tell the government now, stop this stupidity. One of the reasons, I'll share this now because we'll come back and do it again. One of the reasons why I believe, and from what I've read so far, from different people who are high professional doctors, lawyers, people who have been doing this type of work for years and years and years, They believe, as much as I do, that when a government is elected by the people, right, they're not going there to be elected by the people to actually support the people in a loving, in a heartful way by making it better for them. Because if you look at history, you got to sit back and laugh your head off, because they've never followed what they said they were going to do, and there's always more negatives being created than positives. The real reason that these high officials get into power is they have the power to make laws, change laws, and then they can get big positions with massive payouts by these trillion-dollar companies. That's the real reason. They're not there for the people. And don't ever, ever believe what a politician tells you, because it's absolute rot. They never tell the truth. That's pretty scary, mate. And that happens worldwide, by the way. If you did a study to see about all the politicians or the presidents or the prime ministers who have been in power in Australia, England, America, Germany, anywhere, France, you'll find when they go out of power, suddenly they've got this unusual, massive job that's paying them so much money, more than what they were getting when they were a politician. So it makes you think, what is going on? Who is running all the countries around the world? And now that is going to be an interesting topic as we go into it. And people are going to find it very hard to believe. They're going to laugh. They're going to call us probably idiots. But I know it's true because I'm in a car room. And I've got vision and sight that very, very few have. I've been around for 3.83 million years in my own evolution. And I've lived thousands of lives on my own planet and other lives on other worlds. And I have full memory of every life that I have ever existed in. I have been able to see things that very few see. I have had experiences over the last, probably, let's say the last 30 years on this earth, that has increased my ability to know what truth is and to know what lies are. And I know when someone is lying. Most of the time, I never say a word because I don't give away my power. When you confront someone and you go on about it, how you know they've lied, and you go on and on and on, you actually give away your power. But when you look at that person or people and you know they're lying directly to you, you say thank you for that and you walk away. But you know that you can never trust that person. And that's the sad part. And as one of the guys said on one of these videos that I was watching, he actually said this, which was very interesting. He said, whatever you do, don't trust anyone, not even me. But he said, what I'm telling you comes from my heart. You can either listen to it or you can fall into the trap. And the end result is you and your family will die. So he's telling the truth. You can look at someone when they're talking. It's body language. And you know, for even from your heart, you can sense that person telling you the truth or they're telling you just lies. Now, interesting, I said to you the last time we spoke, I took some photos just before to see how it would go on my camera, and then I'm going to transfer it onto the laptop and then have Michelle crop it and then put it on our website and a few other things like Facebook and things like that. And it's also, you've heard this. It's about the president, not the father, the son, shaking hands with an alien.
I just wanted to clarify here, the photo that Kuntarkis is talking about is the one you've probably seen that is the photo for this particular episode on the podcast Kuntarkis. It's of George W. Bush shaking hands with a particular alien. If you'd like to see a better version of that photo, you can find it at our website, which is linked in the description of this episode. Also, you can find it on our Facebook page, Kuntarkis.
And that's what our topic is going to be about. And it's going to be a very interesting one. Now, my wife even said to me, she said, don't call it an alien because people don't like the word alien. I said, okay, what do I call it? Extraterrestrial? No. But that's what it is. No, call it a being. I said, oh, all right, I'll call it a being. So that's that.
So this picture where he was shaking hands and you mentioned that there were some people behind through a door. And that particular, well, I know you're going to talk about it, but I guess I'm asking my first question. What was that being? Was that a reptilian, that particular tall alien?
Yes, it is. It is a reptilian, but it's of a different species.
Than the ones that are here. It's of a different species.
Exactly, yeah. Exactly. Yes. The other ones are real green. They are green. They're well, actually, they're like that book I've got in front of me. It's a sort of a limey green, but slightly darker. But these ones here, they're more white, and they've got different sort of colour spots throughout their whole body.
They've got scales?
It's really, really hard to actually tell. Now, I believe personally, and I'll go into this one very quickly, when I lived in a place called Marumba Downs, which was about, say, a little over a year ago, I had several experiences. Every time I decided that I was going to go and lay in a separate bed because I felt things were going and I had to balance myself and also draw in the energies, and I had to try these particular experiments with myself to see if I could do this out-of-body projection and then create a physical body. So I needed to be in my own space. But this creature came to me, this being, and its face just appeared in front of me. And I literally looked at it and smiled and said, get lost, because I instantly knew it was a negative thing. And it just went like that and disappeared. About a week and a half later, I was on my stomach and I was just sort of going off into a sleep, and I suddenly felt the bed press down. And I thought to myself, oh, I bet it's back. Then suddenly I felt this hand on my back pushing on the center of my back down. It's like it was trying to paralyze me, because I could suddenly feel this energy going through my body and I couldn't move my legs suddenly. And I said, no. And I just spun around, because I can break their field. It's not an issue. I've learnt. I literally spun around with my left hand and I hit him fair in the jaw. And he went flying backwards and hit the cupboard doors that were off the side of the bed. And this sound that came out of his mouth, and he just disappeared. It's like he went back into another vibration.
Yeah, well, we've spoken about that. Generally, when they're not seen, because while they're here, they're in a different phase of it's physic. Is it completely physical like us, but it's just a different phase?
Completely physical.
Because I've heard one time you told me that, like, if they're hovering above you, how do they hover if they've got gravity?
Well, I think you'll find, Michael, their technology is naturally far more advanced than ours, right? But the only problem is with them and the green reptilians is they've taken their technology in a very negative way to control and dominate. That's the difference. Now, when they're in this different vibration and you're saying they're sort of hovering, they're not actually hovering, they're standing. So the vibration that they may be standing in, the floor may be at that level. And they may just bend down and grab you or put their hand on you.
Or whisper in your ear.
Or whisper in your ear. It's like the two vibrations come together and they can move independently between those vibrations. But he knows that I'm not scared of him and I won't be intimidated. I've never allowed myself to be intimidated. I used to, many, many years ago, but that was the old conditioning of poor Roman. But I taught myself, I don't fear anything.
So what do you think he wants?
From me, I think he wants to control me. He can control me so I don't actually do write books.
Or good things in the world.
Yeah, or good things, or run seminars, right?
Or do a topic, do an episode like this, which is shining light on this shadow.
Absolutely.
This is, they wouldn't want this. And like you were just saying, even today, before you did this episode for today, you were feeling tired and down because of this.
Absolutely.
This energy.
That's right. They will do anything. See, they're not actually very powerful beings. Even though they're taller than most humans, right? Their body structure is not as big as, say, a human. Even though they're tall, they're much differently shaped. If you actually look at the photo, you can see how their arms are longer and their neck is very different. Their shoulders are narrower. Their head protrudes slightly forward to what a human's does. And it's just amazing to actually observe it. And from what I can actually see, I don't believe they have any genitals exposed. So they must be different. So their genitals will only come out when they need to, I suppose, urinate or be intimate with their kind or whatever. But what's interesting is how they have played out over the last, say, especially the last 450, say, 2 years, what they have done in their family line. They've come here, and by the way, they have been coming to Earth for thousands and thousands of human years. And what they've been doing is using the locals for experiments. And we'll get into that much deeper. But they have also removed trillions of megatons of valuable minerals off this earth. They have mined it. And their ships are quite large. And they travel back and forth and they take this with them. And they also have taken many, many humans thousands of years ago on their ships, never told them what's going to happen to them, and they have used them for experimentation, just like humans do with animals, but in a much more sadistic way. And when I explained that about the Egyptians up to 7,000 years ago, because that's only as old as they are in history, it's going to open up a can of worms. So, and before I say let's get into it, there's going to be times when it's going to sound a little boring to you or to, say, the people that are listening in how I'm explaining it. But the reason I'm doing it the way I am, or will be, is to paint a picture, to get to the actual reality of why they are doing what they are doing to us right now. And it's important that that picture is painted.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay, Kuntarkis. Well, then let's start off with, why are these beings doing it? And we know that you've said that it's the reptilians. Why are they doing this? And what are they doing specifically? And how far back does this really go?
That's a really good question, Michael. And I think there are a lot of people on Earth that would agree with what I'm about to say, because I believe they also follow similar lines of information. But maybe they just don't go to the spiritual side, the deeper side of it. Now, one thing I must say also about these reptilians, whether it's the green ones or I call them the white ones, they aren't spiritual beings. In fact, nothing like that whatsoever. They don't have a belief system. They don't have empathy. They don't have a heart that feels for something that they may be causing pain for. They're pretty well blind to all of that. They really don't care. When it comes to their own kind, they're a little bit different. They'll always try to save one of their own kind because they're not actually a massive civilization. They've had a lot of negative things happen to them. And the group that came here long ago was a smaller group, like what would they call that? Like a fraction of their society. But first of all, Michael, I want to go back to 1978. Between 1978 and 1979, I have always experienced, even before that, because, as you are well known, I came here on the 29th of August, 1969 at 11:11 p.m. And my first introduction was when I opened my eyes, I was in a hospital. And Roman's body was in a hospital, lying in a bed with his legs paralyzed because of all the drugs that they gave him, and he couldn't move his legs. I have always known that there are beings that come from other worlds. But in 1978, an extraordinary thing happened to me during a sleep time on, say, one evening, where I experienced like it happened all night. And this went over many, many nights, and I really couldn't work out why. It was like a mass conspiracy of all of humanity. But there was just so much of it, I couldn't remember it all when I thought about it. One morning I woke up and I was sitting in my office downstairs and I said, I'm going to write a book. I have to write a book. This is really interesting because there's got to be something to this. You don't just dream night after night after night, which is like a continuation. That is really unusual for anyone. I started writing a book, had no idea how to write a book, and I most certainly had no idea how to write a film script. I wrote a book and I called it The World Conspiracy. And I remember this voice saying to me in my sleep time, and I even remember that they were standing on my left and I couldn't turn my head to see them, no matter how much I tried. So I just allowed myself to listen. And the words that stuck to me were, this is real. You are being given this vision over and over, so you see the reality of what is to come in human future. It may not be predicted exactly as what will be, but the pieces will fit together like a jigsaw, and call it the World Conspiracy. And that's what I did. I called it the World Conspiracy. And I wrote a storyline. I described everything. And I wrote all the dialogue for all these characters. I created all these characters and I wrote it. And it was all about how human society wanted to control the world, which is called the New World Order, like it is today. And there were these people from all governments all around the world setting up all these establishments, whether in a mountain, underground, or even out in the open. But these massive areas could house anything from 50,000 people to several 100,000. And in my book that I wrote, the only people that would survive the Holocaust were people of high-standing nature, where they were like doctors, scientists, mechanics, builders, all that type of thing, politicians. And I looked at all that and I said, wow, this is really interesting. And the whole point was I used Alice Springs for some strange reason as the main centre, where this guy by the name of Fowler, who was the head, like a CEO, and they had like 7 levels, but only 6 levels were allowed access to all the people working there, or to all the people who were there. Only a very few knew about what was on the 7th level, down under the ground, deep. And what it was experiments of a bacteria. Not a virus, a bacteria. And they created this bacteria that would wipe out the entire human race and animals that were still there and leave no trace within a 50-year period. Their bodies would be dissolved, all broken down into liquid and consumed by these bacteria. And the bacteria would naturally grow more and more and more from this. And it was like a mist, but it would increase in its quantity. And it was so efficient that it even got rid of the bones. They were going to leash that on the world through planes. Just like they're dropping this, there's a certain word, you might know it, Michael, where these big planes go over and they're actually dumping something into the atmosphere. And there's a terminology they use, and it's in the back of my head, but I can't bring it forward. And I'm sure the listeners would know what I mean. But that is a very toxic chemical, and it plays with your mood swing, your changes. It can do a lot of different things to you.
Yeah, chemtrails.
Chemtrail, that's it. I think it's more in the big carriers that actually carry it and just dump it. And they dump it over cities, they dump it over anywhere. And it's called chemtrail, that's it. And that's very well known by most of the general public. But that was the actual idea. And eventually these people that live in all these centres, underground, in a mountain, they would come out and they would repopulate the world in a different way. So there would be no people left that were deformed, had some sort of brain problem, the elderly would all be gone, all that type of thing. That was basically cleansing the earth and repopulating the earth again. So that was that book. I put it aside and I left it. I wrote even a couple more. Years down the track, I was having all these experiences again. And I did the same thing. Then years again, they were getting more and more intense. Now I wrote my first book called Entrapment. Then I wrote the Book of Knowledge, which was more to the point. It was to give you an insight to what's out there in space and to how many universes actually do exist, and that there are hundreds of thousands of life forms, whatever they may be, and intelligent ones far beyond us. I mean, we look at the Chirons, 27 million years in evolution. And yet my father, Yarkis Cardis, come from a group of aliens that were called the Zybekyapa. And that's 15 million years ago when they first perished. And only he survived, except a few more, who fooled humanity into believing they were gods and created these massive holograms. So there was a conspiracy going on from all different levels. Michael, what's going on now is deeper than that, because what we have now is every government around the globe is trying to intimidate us, put fear into us, create all these circumstances. My wife showed me something very interesting tonight, and I think the listeners will find this really fascinating. They're using it. The government is using this particular photo to show people of a dying woman who's going, can't hardly breathe, because that's what COVID-19 is all about. It prevents your lungs from expanding. It's shutting everything down. It's literally paralyzing not just your lungs, but your entire nervous system. And what happens, you suffocate, which is a horrible way to go from that perspective. The photo, Michael, in reality, goes back quite a few years when a woman was used as an actress to show that smoking will kill you.
Oh, wow.
It was a smoking ad. And they're using it to show the general public in Australia, I'm not sure if other countries, that if you don't get your shot, this what will happen to you. You'll eventually catch, C19, and if you don't get the 2 vaccines, this is what's going to happen to you. Very, very interesting, isn't it, Michael? Mm. Very interesting. Now, years on, I decided then I'm going to write a book called The Dream Assassin, Volume 1. And I knew there'd be a Volume 2 and a Volume 3. But the same thing happened to me again when I was working on a book called The Long Journey Home, Beyond Entrapment. It was going to be a new book, non-fiction, far greater than entrapment. The interesting factor is, halfway through, I stopped because I had dream experiences again. Really, really vivid. And I used to come back with bruises. I used to come back fatigued. And I couldn't work out why. But at the same time, when I came back and I awoke the morning, I was like living on like a cloud, because I had these most brilliant experiences where I could fly whenever I wanted to. I had the power to fly. And you know how you've had experiences flying, mm-hmm. but you're not in control in most situations when you're doing it.
Most of the times I'm not, yeah.
No, that's billions of people are flying in every time they go to sleep, but they don't have the control. I could fly at any moment, as high as I wanted. I could leap up onto buildings. I could walk through walls. I could create these massive energy balls that I could use and recreate anything I wanted to out of living energy. I really learnt to manipulate and communicate with living energy, which is the substance that everything that exists in every single universe is created and manifested into solid matter. Now, we have billions of different objects on this planet that are different in form. And people would say, well, how come everything can vibrate at the same frequency? It doesn't. A rock vibrates very differently to an ant. A person or a bird vibrates all at different frequencies. They're all lower compared to a human. That's a natural thing in evolution. The most interesting factor is I brought all that knowledge back, and I even created the actor's name because people in the spirit world, when I was doing this magic, said to me, "Who are you? What's your name?" The first time somebody asked me that, my first answer was, "My name is Mystical Man." Even then, when I spoke those words in spirit world, or wherever I was, I stopped and hesitated to that name and took full recognition. It's like I was seeing the future again. But it was playing out to go into a book, which is called The Dream Assassin, Volume 1. And all the things that are going on in the world today sort of correspond in different circumstances right throughout Volume 1 and going into Volume 2. So I created the book, and the book's out there. Now we've created a podcast, And we've officially had 50 different episodes. Wow, that was brilliant. I think that's brilliant. In what, a year? Not even a year.
Not even a year, yeah.
That's really good. And there's so much knowledge there for people. It's just unbelievable, really.
It is of good value. If you don't get too scared by the how clear the knowledge is, if it doesn't scare you off, then it's of good value. I listen to it again and again, different episodes. Like, oh yeah, that was said, and oh, that's interesting, and yeah.
Yeah. What's most important for every human being is you've got to listen with an open mind, an open heart, without judgment. What we have to realize as human beings, and this is the honest truth, all of us have experienced so many lives through reincarnation. We have had so much conditioning created from every lifetime into our genetics, into our DNA, into our cellular structure. And it's all locked away there. Most of us will never, ever open that up to all the lives we have had and all the experiences that we have had. But there is a way of doing it. It takes time. It takes discipline. And you have to have the moments in your life to be able to do it.
Or lifetimes.
Yeah, lifetimes. One of the big problems with our world today, governments know the only way you can control people first is fear. You put enough fear into anything or anyone and they will look for a solution. And the government gives you a picture that looks like that could be the solution. Now, when terrorism was at its height and everybody was just so fearful of being blown up in a shopping centre or in a theatre, and that's worldwide, and that's the truth. So the government then said, oh, goody, let's actually make new laws. The government now has passed laws, so many, that you can't even say hardly anything without being charged for, say, even terrorism, because you've said one word. If you call someone a racist or you say you're a racist so-and-so, he can sue you or she can sue you. The laws have gone so crazy that we are losing our human rights. And that's not right. Because the people elect a government to work for the people, not the government. And what's going on is the government thinks that they now have all this power, they own everything. What they don't realize is they don't. And the only way they hold it is through the police force and the army. Now, what's really interesting, Michael, is they now are looking at doing stage 4 lockdown. Now, recently, there was this man saying they look like they're going into stage 5. Well, stage 5 lockdown is when the Australian Army comes in to every suburb in Australia and patrols. And they also dictate the food that you get. And you get rations. That's what is going around at the moment, what they are looking at doing. And some are saying that they'll go as far as to literally not allow you to leave your house. And they will have soldiers at the end of the street making sure you never leave. And that's interesting, isn't it?
Gosh.
Right? And they have the power to even shoot you if you refuse their command. And they call it wartime. Right? Interesting, isn't it? And they reckon they're going to close everything down. Shops, businesses, banks, everything. And that's really interesting.
And they're needing less and less proof to do what they really want to do, which is this, as opposed to the excuse of the COVID-19.
Absolutely. And one interesting thing too is, I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but it's all out there if you actually want to find it and listen to it. I think I've sent you a few things, or Michelle has sent you a few things too. There seems to be this really strange, how would you say, information that how deadly this COVID-19 truly is. Well, first of all, it's not. Second of all, it's man-made, 100%. It's made for a reason. It's made to instill fear. Now, they're saying they're not going to tell us what's in it.
Do you mean in the vaccination?
In the actual vaccination, yes. Now, the funny thing is, these companies are now all saying this is what's in it. But it's not true. It is a lie, a lie, a lie. There is so many lies going around at the moment that people don't know who to believe. And that is the real truth. People are becoming confused. Now, one of the things that I heard, which is really interesting, there was these doctors that have been doing this talk, and there's this doctor that also did autopsies on quite a few patients, and he explains how these people died, how they suffocated. Their lungs have literally transformed into this unusual shape caused by this virus. There are those that are saying the virus doesn't exist. It's just a complete lie. But they've created the pandemic for many more reasons than that. Now, this is where it becomes touchy. There are families on this earth that are trillionaires, and I'm saying quite a few of them, but most of them live in America. And they literally run everything. They run the banks. They literally probably own the biggest bank, which is the IMF. And they own companies like Monsanto, all the places where they create all the poisons, Michael, that you could possibly think of. They also own all the genetic information, the data. It's like there are hundreds of farmers in America that have lost their farms or have been sued to a point where they just, again, lost their farm, and these companies have literally taken over, and Monsanto is especially one of them. The interesting factor is Monsanto has been doing genetic engineering, trying to create food that's got, like corn, for instance. It's the biggest product that's used on this earth today, besides soybeans. And what's really interesting about soybeans, about 92% of soybeans go to animal feed. That's interesting, isn't it? That's worldwide. But they create a bacteria or a virus, depending on which one it is, that mutates the actual cellular structure of the corn, and it protects them against certain bugs and things like that. But apparently when the wind comes along, it blows this genetic information into the atmosphere, like into the air. And down the road, there may be a farmer that doesn't use genetically modified processes, and it gets onto his corn or his vegetables. They come along and they test it, and they find that it's got their genetic information in his foods. They instantly sue him. Well, naturally, they have so much money that they could sue 10 billion farmers and they would still have more money. But they win all the time. They win. And they bankrupt these poor farmers. Now, genetic modification plays a very big negative part in our human body, but it takes years. Now, if we go back one step further to show the difference of genetically modified corn, well, let's look at chickens. Now, you've probably seen the normal chicken in these chicken farms have now increased in size by at least 3 times, even 4. Their legs used to be long. Now they're so short, these poor chickens can't even hardly walk. They're so big. It looks like they're just so bulky, especially that lower part of their body from the neck down. Now that naturally produces a lot more meat, which produces trillions of more dollars. The funny thing is, they feed them every single day with hormones. Now, some say they do, some say they don't. But the worst factor is antibiotics, which put on weight on the chicken, and they know this. The problem is it plays with the human DNA, which can, in time, lead to a variety of different illnesses. And I even think that's coming out now. Now, these other companies, they produce viruses, vaccines, by the hundreds. And they are creating more problems than they have ever created. But listening to this guy the other day, he was talking about the genetically modified corn. And he was talking about how the farmers get sued and they lose their farm and all that type of stuff. But then he said something very interesting. He said, let's look at the human body. The human being is under a strict guidance and is protected by the human rights laws. You are a human. You have blood which carries DNA. That's your DNA. It's unique in its makeup. No one is like you. But if a company comes along who is a big pharmaceutical company creating all these different vaccines, they can create a product that some people are now calling nanoids. I think that's the word, little nanoids.
Like nanotech.
Yeah, that's it. In a liquid form that's so minute. And they grow them. And they put them into these vaccines, and then they inject you. You're thinking you're getting the cure for COVID-19. What you're getting is a minefield. Now you have, what do they call it? Like a corpuscle, I think they call it. It's there's a certain name, and I just can't grab it. But you have this cylinder inside your body by the billions. And within that cylinder, in the center, is your DNA. The doctors are now saying today that if these little nanoids did get into your system, they can't go past the first wall. They only get slightly into it, which then activates your immune system, and then it attacks and kills the virus. So if you come in contact again with it, it will have the same thing where you will not get infected because your immune system has been built up. But it works the same way, Michael, without getting the vaccine. If you get a virus in your body, yes, it may last a bit longer. It may not, depending on the person's immune system. It literally automatically makes those little saviors to destroy your enemy. And you end up healthy again. So your body's doing it automatically. But these massive trillion-dollar organizations have got a second agenda, or even a third agenda. They want the rights to your DNA. And that's an interesting point. When you get the 2 injections, whichever one is got it in it, those little nanites get all the way in and they change your DNA forever. And have a guess who patents, is it, how do we say that word?
Yeah, patents, yeah.
Patents, yeah. That's what they do. And you become the property of these companies. And they can do what they want with you because you're no longer human. Your DNA has been changed forever. So they can just experiment on you. Okay, let's now go back in time. Let's go back to the Egyptians. We can go long back. We can go 150,000, 200,000 years when these beings actually first came to this planet. But back then, they never had a lot of gain. All they could take mainly was the minerals and humans, and they did all these experiments.
Back then, were they still able to phase out of our physical reality so we couldn't see them?
No.
No, not back then.
No, not back then. No, not back then. No. It's only actually quite recently that that's actually occurred. I'd have to look into it more deeper to find out exactly. But what's really interesting is, in the Egyptian time, you know, if you see all the hieroglyphics on the walls?
Yeah.
Right? And you see where they've got like, it looks like a male or a female standing there, but they've got the head of a wolf or the head of an eagle, right? Well, that's actually real. That's real. And the reason I say it's real is those people back then would never have thought about having those drawings on those walls. Those people came down here and acted like gods because they had all this technology that these people, these locals, would never have seen. And to them, they would think, well, you know, what does a god have? Well, they have a lot of power, that's for sure. They can point their ray guns and they can actually blow up a building. So they looked at them as very supreme type god figures. And they end up ruling a lot of the nations because their egos are so big. But they also had another agenda, and the agenda was experimental. They would chop the head off a human and put a eagle's head on it.
No way. That's where it came from. Oh my gosh.
Do you remember in the myth legends where you saw half horse, half man?
Yes.
Half goat, half man?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that was pretty common back then because they were the only animals that they normally could actually successfully do that. But the biggest problem was when the horse, half man, it was always the lower part of their body that back then I'm talking about, you know, it's thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago. Back then, the lower part of their body was like a horse or like a goat. But the top half, it looked a little bit goaty on the head, but it still looked human. And that's what they were doing. So when those animals bred, they made them breed male and female, they would have an offspring that looked really like half goat and sort of half man or half woman. Wow. And that's where all those legends came from. These aliens, these beings, were literally manipulating the DNA of humans. And they had the technology where they could lay you on a table just like we do with our people in hospital and make them feel no pain and put them into a semi-coma, just like that, just like we do with our doctors today. And when they're lying there, they remove their heads. They either keep their heads for experimental or they throw them away. And they put animal heads on there. Now, up to 7,000 years ago, when the Egyptians, they did exactly the same things. Eagle heads, wolf heads, a variety of other things. There have been the most strangest creatures known to man on this earth over the last 100,000 years. In the last 30,000, it's quite extraordinary. Now, we've got to say thank you that they never come across Atlantis about 37,000 years ago when it sank and blew up. But now what's really interesting is they're doing it again, Michael. in another way. They're actually mixing human DNA, not just with alien DNA, but with animal DNA to see what happens. And they're now creating half human and say half bullock or half rhino or half lion. So that is really scary. And these are the beings that are doing it. And they have been doing it for a very large part of human history. And the conspiracy worldwide is that these beings are controlling these families so well. And one of the reasons why, 452 years ago, a race came down here, which was these beings, a very small amount of them, in a little ship, because they were chased out of their own society.
So is this another version of the reptilians?
Yes, another version.
Right.
Now, when they came here, they created wealth because they were wise, they had the know-how, and they had the technology in their own brain in how to do it. And they became rich, very rich. And they always bred in their own bloodline, never outside, never. They kept their bloodline pure, so they didn't allow the poisons of negative emotions from humans to enter in to change their destiny. And they knew what they wanted to accomplish. And what we have today, 452 years ago, from then back here now, we have these families that are now humanoid, so close to being human that nobody would ever pick them, because they have learnt the manipulation of the DNA. And now they're amongst our society, and they're literally not just controlling humanity, but they're controlling humanity through all the governments. And the governments are controlling the police force as well as the army. I mean, there was a thing I think I mentioned to you only about 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks, where a politician in Australia, which I believe from Canberra, informed one of the generals in the Australian Army that they are going to take it into stage 4 at the end of August 21 this year. And they're going to set their military, which had been training now for months in how to manipulate and handle the public and what they can do and what they can't do, and they are going to move in after that month over a period of time. That's really interesting, isn't it?
Mm.
Right? Now you got to ask yourself, well, who was the politician that actually told the general? And then someone found out from the general and now has informed it over the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because that's how news travels. It always travels no matter what.
Mm.
So we have got a being race, I should say alien race.
It's alien race. They're aliens.
Yeah, they're aliens. We've got an alien race that's controlling our entire population through our governments, through manipulation and fear. And they have set up this COVID-19, and that's exactly what it sounds like, like a spy movie, COVID-19, to literally put fear into people to take the injection. And even the ones, Michael, that don't take the injection and refuse blank, they're going to be hoarded off out of their homes, either put into other locations or into concentration camps. So here we have now the regime, which is called the Nazis. Interesting thing about the First World War, they manipulated the First World War. Interesting thing about the Second World War, they manipulated Hitler to start a world war. And he would have succeeded if his ego didn't get too big. He did the biggest mistake of his life. He went to attack Russia because Russia said they were going to attack him, so he attacked first, and he failed. Right? Interesting. Back in Hitler's time, they were also doing experimentations. When their soldiers lost a leg or an arm or two legs, they were cutting legs off prisoners and sewing them on their soldiers to see if it would work. There was so much going on, taking their kidneys, their livers, but no one wants to talk about that. No one wants to know about that. So the conspiracy has been going on for a very long time, at least the last 452 years. And you've got to ask yourself, why is it that this family, if someone went back in their family line and researched it and say, well, how come this family has been making so much money right down the line? And if they actually investigated the marriages that are in the family line, surely they must come up with something, but nobody's doing that. Nobody's questioning any of it. And when the government wants to conceal the bad stuff, they create a shadow to get people to focus on that shadow because it doesn't exist. So people forget about what's happening, what the government just did. It's like all those people that were talking about what happened in Parliament House, and I believe it is Canberra. Forgive me if I'm wrong, I humbly apologise, but I don't think it is. I think it is Canberra, where some security women came forward to what they were doing in Parliament. There were these parliamentaries, people, hiring homosexual men, and they were having it off in Parliament House.
Oh.
And there were women that were raped that worked there. And everything was kept quiet, but it got out. But the government put a real squash downer on that so that people would forget about that and start to concentrate on the fear of COVID-19. They changed the picture so you forget about what actually is important, that these mongrels were doing that. And that is just disgusting because some of those men had wives and children. But that's all now quiet. What we need is the people to stand up and go to every state in Australia with a petition and have 1 million people sign these petitions all over Australia and say enough is enough. Stop this now. They have no choice. But from what this man was saying the other day that I was listening to, he believes Australia and Canada are the two countries that they are using as an example to see how it works. Now, what's really interesting about America, I don't know if I mentioned this to you, the true figure has just come out about the amount of people that have actually died from the injection. And they reckon it's roughly like, say, anything from 1,000 to 2,000 people a week just dropping dead from this injection. Massive complications. And now there's about over 20,000. And when they talked about those bodies, when the COVID first started, they reckon Americans were dropping like flies. And they had to put them in coffins and put them under the streets because they had no place to actually put the bodies. They had no place to burn them because they were already burning all these bodies and they couldn't get rid of them. And they say, well, the government turned around and said, well, that was just a lie. Well, apparently from what this guy was saying, it's actual truth. But the government is always so good at hiding the truth because they don't want you to know the actual truth. Now, the interesting thing, Michael, I went on the internet last night before I went to bed something prompted me to do to go onto Facebook. And for some unknown reason, the pages were playing up. I could not, my pictures were just the full width of the actual computer, the laptop. And so Facebook was sort of, just didn't work right. And then I ended up on this site that this guy that's been putting up, so much data, it's unbelievable, about what the governments are doing, the secrets behind the governments. And I noticed all these different spaceships. I noticed all these different beings that are doing experiments on humans. And it brought back a lot of memories. And one thing I noticed was this triangle spacecraft. I've seen one, Michael.
Really?
Myself, in my time of sleep. I remember being out of my body and I did something magical for this small group of people. And as I was walking back, I was in a park, it was nighttime, I laid down and was looking up at the stars. Something said lay down. I did. I had my hands behind my head, one of my legs folded, and I'm just looking up and I could feel the coolness in the air. And as I looked up, this object went flying past, probably about 500 to maybe 800 meters above the ground. And I looked and I said, oh, it's very dark metal type color, but had these lights on it. And then it sort of hovered around and it was definitely a triangle. Longer in one point, but like a pyramid. If you stood it up, it looks like a pyramid. But I think one side going up to the point was slightly longer. And it was quite large, really. And I thought to myself, wow, now this guy has brought them out and he's actually showing evidence that that technology is not just man-made, it's given by these aliens. The reason? So they can do the hell whatever they want to. Now that spaceship was used in the like Baghdad and those places. I just can't think of the name. It's amazing. It's gone. I mentioned it just before. But anyway, in those countries, when the Americans were fighting, they aided the Americans. How? I'm not sure. But he shows photos of the American soldiers and this ship up in the sky. And then on the opposite side of the page, it's got this ship at a much closer view. And it's exactly the same ship that I actually saw in my time when I was out of my body.
Wow. So was it aliens that were helping out by flying it, or did you say they gave it to the people to use?
No, the Americans built it. The Americans built it from alien knowledge and technology.
Wow.
They've actually given them that technology so they can do certain things.
So are you saying, which aliens gave them to? The same ones we've been talking about?
Same ones we've been talking about. The ones that were here 452 years ago, right, are the same aliens that are here right now and present.
They're the main problem.
That's right. They're the main problem.
Controlling the rich families, controlling the governments, controlling
Absolutely.
Lots of things. Yeah.
And what's really interesting is, as I said before, they have learnt through their genetic engineering to literally become human. They have played with the DNA, so the spirit, they have the knowledge of the spirit entering in, so it has life. It's got to have a spirit. These beings have a spirit. Now, what's really interesting is a long time ago, back in say 1979, maybe 80, I wrote a synopsis called One Way Game. Interesting is Bruce Lee brought out a movie called One Way Game. I don't know how that happened, but that was interesting. Coincidence, yes. But I brought it out. It's about a teacher going on like an excursion out into the desert, mountains, with his chosen pupils to teach them how to live off the land. And then they come up against this town, which is not really recorded anywhere, but it's a town, not a massive town, probably got a population of about, say, 2,000 people. And the town is sort of pretty old, and more unmodern. And they come into the town and they notice these dogs, which are really strange looking dogs with these objects on the back of their necks. And these dogs look at them, but they don't do anything. But in reality, what's below the town is a massive area that's been cleaned out, and it's an alien civilization. And what's more interesting, Michael, is the buggers look just like this photo that I've got just sitting beside me. When I actually recognized that that's what the aliens look like through my dream experiences to create this synopsis, I was looking at identical. And that's what's really interesting.
Wow, of the photo of the one shaking the president's hand.
Yeah, it's not that one particular, but it was ones like that. And what's more interesting is the same sort of circumstances was that they had these tubular machines that were tubes and these massive machines around them, and they could transfer the spirit of a human by dragging it out of the body into another tube. And then from another tube beside it, they could take the spirit from the alien and put it into the human physical body.
Wow.
Then they would sever the cord that the original recipient spirit was within. And the spirit would just wander off into the spirit world because it's no longer connected to the body. Right? And that spirit from the alien would actually take over. And they stored the aliens' bodies just in case they were going to go back into it. And what they were doing, they were looking for prominent positions of power to try and kidnap these people and do exactly that. Then they go back with all the knowledge that's within the genetics of the human body, and they could literally act as if everything's fine, recognizes everyone, and they were literally taking over. They were in power. And that's what I was creating, a one-way game.
Wow.
It was quite dramatic, actually. So if you look at my life as a being from another world, I have been very fortunate to have all these experiences in my time of sleep, which was showing me the reality of what would occur today. And that's how I need to look at it. And what is occurring today is the takeover of humanity.
The attempted takeover.
The attempted takeover. Now you remember in my first volume on chapter 7, where I created an alien race called the Xerazines, right? And Zyakit was this 9-foot creature that destroyed his own world, including his wife, his children, and his family, like his father and mother, just to prove a point and keep secret that he discovered how to manipulate the local atom, a normal atom, where he could create a field of energy over a planet and make that planet transparent, but still allow the civilization to live upon it. I mean, this was my dream experiences, all this, and I'm creating it into a book as things were going on. And then in chapter 8 of volume 2, when the massive battle occurs between the Xerazines, Mystical Man, and also the president, Ted McKay, how he sends out 69 missiles, nuclear missiles, that literally destroy everything. And the reason it destroyed everything, the planet, and it imploded upon itself was because Mystical Man found out how to turn off this machine. And that was his aim. And once that machine was turned off, the planet became physical. And then it could be destroyed. And 69 nuclear missiles destroyed it. And it literally vaporized and it created a wormhole and imploded upon itself. It was very interesting how it all happened.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to reading up to to that spot. So the Zeracenes, and this particular Zayakit, he was a tall white reptilian, right?
No, he was lightly green too. He
Oh,
was
lightly green. Okay.
Yes, but he was 9 foot tall, and he had the most, pardon the expression, he had the most ugliest face, massive mouth. He really did. He was a massive carnivore.
Well, my question is, you called them the Zeracenes. Is that literally the actual name?
Yes, they no longer exist.
Oh, those type reptilians don't exist. Okay.
They don't exist, and he doesn't exist.
Okay.
They perished in another circumstance a long time ago. I picked up all the fragments and created the Dream Assassin Volume 1. And the reason it was meant to be was to show me so I could actually express it through my book, but also through the podcast, because there are hundreds of millions of people proving that everything that is occurring at this exact moment with this COVID-19 and the governments is a complete conspiracy. And that's what we have to do. We have to open our minds, our hearts beyond fear. We have to open up our sensibility to have the reasoning to see the truth and stop seeing the lies that are being created. Because these beings are not playing a game. They're for real. And they can see that they can make billions of billions and trillions of dollars in changing the DNA of humans, because they will literally own them. Just like they own the genetically modified corn and a variety of other fruits and vegetables. I don't believe in Australia, but overseas. In fact, I think it's Monsanto that owns the rights to all the seeds of what we consume as food.
Wow.
Right? They have patented it. Right? That's what they've done, mate. Completely. And the only company you can buy them from is a company in Melbourne, outside of Melbourne. And they've now got these farms that they've built up, and you can buy the seeds. Because all fruits, all vegetables have seeds. Mm-hmm. So you can regrow. Companies like Monsanto and others don't want you to grow. I mean, in America, they've even created laws. This is no joke. Laws that you can't grow a vegetable garden in your backyard or your front yard.
No way, really?
Absolutely.
Oh, that's terrible.
They're calling it a health hazard.
Oh.
That is no joke. I laughed when I heard that. I thought that was the biggest joke in the world, that they allow these things to happen. And it's the same with what Biden, this so-called president, he's now created the law that I think I've mentioned about bringing down the walls at the border, not continuing to build the walls, and also he's allowed people to come in. There are millions coming into the country illegally. And most of them, the men especially, they're savages. They're serial murderers, serial rapists, drug lords. They're coming in so they can establish a mass drug organization throughout America. It's going to be horrendous if that actually gets allowed. Even President Trump said that on a live interview just outside of the border in this massive town, I think it was Texas, that if we allow this and we don't put a stop to it now, they're going to overrun this country when it comes to criminal activities. Mm. He says it's going to be a hell of a job, he said, to try and eradicate all of this, but it has to be done. Yeah.
Wow. So I got a question going back to this current version of the Reptilians that were here from like 452 years ago. Can you just explain their history before they got here and why they came and like what was the deal with their ship and
Okay. They were rebels. They were like drug lords, and they were trying to create their own empire, and the governments or the council members of that world didn't want it, and they were going to be arrested and executed. So they took off in a ship to get away, and they found Earth because they know that a lot of their brothers and sisters had come here previously, so they knew exactly where to come. And today, we've got these bloodlines. And, you know, the man, David Icke, I got to take, well, I don't wear a hat, very rare, if I mow the yard or something, but I had to take my hat off to a man like that. He spent 25 years in research, and what he brought forward to all the countries that he did his seminars in was absolutely valuable. That should have shown people the proof. The proof was there. It's been happening really for thousands of years, even with humans, through human society, controlling, domineering. It's been going on for thousands and thousands of years. And that's one of the reasons why humans are so easily manipulated, because they've experienced such cruelty through wars. I mean, 157,000 wars in 928,000 years. That's unheard of. Why would a world fight so much amongst themselves? It's called domination. You know, it's like you get a family, say you spread them apart maybe 100 kilometers, and there's a family of, say, 12, and there's a family of 12 over here, and they're building up their family line, you know, let's say 100 year passes, and they built a town, and they've built a town, and they're doing drugs over here, they're doing drugs over there, they're selling their drugs to different places around the world, or theirs, they're selling foods, they're doing everything, whatever they want to do. Then one day, one of them goes over the line and the other ones kill him. And before you know it, there's a war. And that's how it started on Earth. Simple things. And it just never stopped, Michael. I've seen the entire history of humanity. When the ships were here, the Chiron ships, and Cadiz was what they call the overseer for all recordings of human history. I mean, she wouldn't have seen all of it because she wouldn't have been alive, but she saw the last, say, 300-400 years. And she showed me. I saw through her eyes so many times different events. And it was just incredible to see the wars that were created over stupidity. And you know what's interesting? It hasn't changed. It's the same stupid reasons they're creating wars. But the only difference in circumstances, it's more now about greed and lust. That's what it's about. That's what it's about.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So how many, you mentioned these other reptilians that were here much earlier. Now, these days, how many different versions of them are here?
Two.
And you were saying there's the green, lime green and the white, is that right?
That's right. That is correct. Yes, they don't interfere with each other, mate.
Ah, really? They don't?
No, they don't. They don't interact. They don't interact at all. They actually live in another vibration. The greens can stand beside you day in and day out, and nothing would change. These white ones don't have that extended technology to do that. They're more into genetic manipulation, where the greens aren't. They're about controlling you through your thoughts, by talking to you, by overshadowing you and making you do things you normally wouldn't do. They're about trying to get people that are in power to manipulate into their way. because the Greens, they also want to control planet Earth. The Whites, they're different. They want to control, but they want to control the humans for wealth. There's a difference. They are very, very greedy. And again, they're similar, I suppose, to the Greens. They don't have any empathy nor heart. They feel for their own, the Whites. The Greens don't. That's the difference. They don't care if any of their people die. They have no care whatsoever. They just use another one, another one, another one, another one.
If people are scared that they are being influenced by these reptilians, what can they do to get rid of them?
The only way you can get rid of a reptilian out of your vibration is become aware first. And you have to literally fight them. They're weak, actually. They're not strong at all. When I say strong, they're not strong in nature. That's why they hide behind a vibration. I've fought them. I've punched one right in the forefront of his face. I've even kicked one. I brought my leg up and kicked him fair in the chest when he was leaning over me. They're a different breed to the white aliens. I have no idea what their name is as a civilization, the white ones. They became a bit new to me because it's only happened to me, I think, in the last probably 3 years that I become aware of their presence, because they seem to want to control me. Just like they're trying to control other people, influence other people.
And what do you call the green ones? What name do they have?
I call them the Zerazines.
Right, we do call them the Zerazines.
Absolutely,
yeah.
that was their name back then.
Back on that planet.
That's right. But these are like an offspring of the original Zerazines. You know, like there's a lot of planets that got, like, say, 3 or 4 homeworlds, and the one that actually got destroyed by another civilization, they were very, very aggressive. Where the green ones here, they're not aggressive. They do everything in hiding. There's a big difference.
I thought you were going to say that you just beam a whole lot of white light and they won't like that and that'll get rid of them, but that's not the case.
What you can do with the green ones or the white ones, you can work on yourself by cleansing the negativity from within you and around you, and place the light. You can even use the word living energy, because that is what the light is. Pure living energy is pure liquid light. And if you can see the light within your heart moving throughout your body and all around your body, and say, I have a force field of light within me and around me in every moment of every breath. But it's in the word believing. If you have fear, you will attract their energies more and more. It's like anything. You know, if you have a fear of the dark, right, and say you walk down a dark street and you think you're going to get attacked, well, if you keep thinking like that, you probably will. But if you walk down the street unbiasedly and just see it as a street, but you're aware, more than likely you won't be attacked. We attract what we most don't want because of the fears that we have within ourselves. Like, it's like, say, I have no fear of death. No one can hurt me. No one can kill who I am. They can destroy the body, but that's the worst thing they could ever possibly do. Because once the body's gone, I'm free. And being free and taking the knowledge that I have of being in spirit world and being able to form a body, well, I would, if I wanted to, I could come back and just vaporize them. Because let me explain something about energy, Michael. I think a lot of people think, oh, yes, you know, this energy thing. We have to understand that on this earth here, we're physical. Okay, we're physical beings. We appear to be physical. And we're third dimensional, and even in our thinking. Now, we create through thought consciousness. And we can create, like, say, a computer, which helps us create space, data, type, hold all the memory, all that type of stuff. We create a microphone that we can speak through. We create books. We create desks so we can actually put our computer on it. We create an automobile, a car, so we can get in a car and travel long distances. We created petrol from animals and vegetation that existed 69 million years ago from oil, because that's what it becomes, crude oil. It's organic. So we create everything that we have on this earth from thought. And then we create it from thought. We draw it on paper. We create the machines to manufacture it. And in the end result, we have what we're looking for. In spirit world, we have to realize that the spirit of what we are is limitless. And I've mentioned this, but it is limited by the physical conditioning of our own negative emotions from our own negative experiences through life or all the lives we have had. It's recorded. So when the spirit comes out of the body in your time of sleep, it goes in a limited state. So it ends up in a vibration that will be lower. But you get a person, a being, that works on themselves spiritually and really dedicates the time factor to that development, they will go to sleep. The spirit will come out, in most cases, unhindered by limitations. And they learn through thought consciousness, just like the physical body, to create whatever their imagination can see. And they can bring it into reality. My truth is what I'm working on is beyond that. Because I've done it many, many times back on Nakaras. And that's why I feel so strongly about it, because it's within my cellular memory. I believe when you go out into spirit world with your abilities of thought consciousness through your imagination, I can create directly from living energy through the power of my own will and bring it into manifestation back into the human world. That's what I'm working on. I believe every human on this planet has the same ability, but they have to work on themselves first. They have to change the level of understanding and thinking from their negative emotions and experiences into something positive by releasing that negative energy and never having it again. And then believing that spirit world exists and you can manifest. These beings, these aliens, have no idea of that whatsoever. None. The green Zerazines have absolutely no idea. Now, people might say, well, they can hide. We can't see them. That's magic, isn't it? No, it's technology. That's why I created the actual energy around the actual planet that they existed upon in my book, because that is what I saw from the fragments of their past. And I brought that into reality through my imagination into my book, The Dream Assassin, Volume 1 and Volume 2. So we have a leg up all of us as humans, to develop our awareness, our self-awareness, because they have no self-awareness. What they have is cunningness and greed, because greed can drive you so hard to create, but in the end you suffer, because greed has no power in the spiritual world, only in the physical world. And their world exists in a monetary way. They haven't yet gone beyond that. And they're still carnivores. And yet they're more advanced than humans. And what technology they've given the Americans, only the Americans, is not outdated, but it's pretty basic compared to their technology. But their biggest thing today, Michael, is genetic engineering through manipulation of the DNA of any species. And that's dangerous.
Wow. I thought mainly they were mainly focused on meshing theirs with ours so they can live in our bodies and incarnate here. So there's that, but what else are they interested in doing with DNA?
Oh, you mean like taking over human, like owning it, owning the human race, owning the DNA?
Oh, owning the DNA.
Owning the DNA, just like they own the genetic engineering for corn. See, they own what they've created. And they are so strong about that if anybody plays with them, they're gone. They're sued. They're broken. And that's what they've been doing. They own the entire patterning of corn itself when it comes to genetically modified corn.
So they want that with more and more things, I guess.
They want that. They're experimenting all the time. And they're barbarians. I mean, to cut the head off a human and to and stick other creatures on there and manipulate. But they've now taken one step further, or two steps, or three. They now can create, this is interesting, Michael, this has been going on for about 70 years, 60 years, 70 years. They're now creating, through genetic engineering, by mixing DNA, taking away human DNA so it doesn't have the emotion, and they're controllable through this little things that they're sticking inside these vaccines. And they can manipulate that through technology. And they can get whatever they create to do exactly what they want. Can you imagine creating an army or a police force of, say, half man, half elephant? Half man, half rhino? Half man, half lion? Right? It's fantasy to many people. But, if you go back in history and read history, that will change your mind. It's not fantasy, it's reality. And it's all been done not by the Egyptians, not by the humans of the past. It's done by alien beings from other worlds who have been doing that for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, because they are probably 5 million, 10 million, 20 million years old. No one knows at this point. The advice is what these other people have been giving on Facebook, a variety of other social media. We have to take full recognition that this is a conspiracy worldwide. We have to take recognition that humans created the COVID-19, and they've turned it now into a conspiracy worldwide. And they're instilling fear, hoping that that will bring it about. There's even another rumor going around by this lady that she apparently has heard, and she's put it on Messenger. And she's saying all these different things, which is very interesting because she's been into the spiritual side of life, well, for a very long time, apparently. And she really follows conspiracies, and she follows all these people that find out all this different information, and she tries to dissect it and try and see what's right and what's not. And when she feels it's right, she puts it out there. You know, she doesn't say it's hers. She just said, this is what has been discovered, and it's up to you if you feel like you want to believe it or not, because the power of it comes back to you, the individual. But she's also saying when the army comes in and the people, over a period of time, who don't accept the vaccinations will be taken away and placed into another area. And all the people who have had vaccinations will be placed into another area. Now, the interesting thing is, where they put you is another thing, whether it's going to be put into homes or concentration camps where they can forcefully give you the needle so they can control your DNA. The other thing is, all people over 50 will be taken away from their families, ripped away from their families, and killed, got rid of. So no more Social Security for pensioners. There's no need for it. The government will save billions of dollars every year. Interesting thought, isn't it?
So surreal.
I tell you, Michael, you know, there's been a lot of movies out, and I've gone back into my own memory to do when I was a warrior on Nakaris, and some of the battles that the four of us and the massive army that we have, what we saw and what was going on was just unbelievable. What some races were doing to other races. And we had to intervene on quite a few occasions. And there were similar situations like there here is on Earth at the moment, where people were really manipulating DNA genetically. It was very interesting. So it's been going on with other species too, negative species, because I see them as a negative species.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as we bring this to a close, I remember making note on one of our recent episodes about the reptilians and the dark forces, how I said, there's a positive ending, and so I guess I want to bring that up again. If you can mention again, just to leave us feeling a bit better. Can you mention how the Nakarans are planning to come here sometime between
about 140 to 270 years of Earth time?
Right, just clean up everything.
That's right, absolutely. But they're going to be offered. They're going to clean up everything, and they're going to be offered globalization, where they'll come under the protection of the Nakarons as a race. And humanity, for the first time, will have no monetary system whatsoever. Nakarons will volunteer to come down here and teach humanity how to set up new councils, no longer governments, no longer police force, and no monetary system whatsoever. Anybody that's got great wealth, it won't exist anymore because money will be destroyed. What they call that thing, the share market, that'll be all gone. And animals, there'll be nobody eating meat anymore. Everyone will turn vegetarian. It'll be a must. The reason they will say that and do that is so you learn to grow consciously and become self-aware. Anyone that eats of flesh will not become fully conscious. Never will. Because what you're doing is you are a part of the slaughter, the murder. Animals like cows, even chickens, horses, donkeys, pigs, goats, lambs, all feel pain, all feel emotion, all feel feelings. They can think to a point, and they can cry when you rip out their baby from them when they're only like not even 3 months old. They mourn for that little one for months and months and months. So the Nicarons came to an understanding so long ago that every animal has a right to live out its existence, however it is meant to be. And the only reason that we are inundated with so many cows and sheep is because we've created the market like that. It was never like that. Most people in many countries ate a fish diet or they had a vegetarian diet. But it changed. And the reason it changed was globalization for humanity. And we started to travel all around the world. Now we can fly. I mean, like the Japanese never used to eat beef like they do now. They've now created their own beef. It's just amazing. Their own animal. They've got them and now they're just farming them like they've never farmed them before. So it's unhealthy for a start. It's secondhand protein. It's not the right protein to have. Feeding animals 92% of the growth of soybeans that are created every year is absolutely insane, when the soybeans that we create every year could feed the world probably for about 10 years. And that's not bad. And what we can create from soybeans is just unbelievable. I mean, the Nicarons, again, 27 million years old in evolution. They've been vegetarians from the word go. And they have beans, but their beans are like 5 times the size of our normal beans, 6 times. And the nutrition that they get out of that when it comes to protein and carbs is just mind-boggling. They've learnt. And I mean, Christ, the Nicaron is so strong in strength and so strong in so many things. So it just goes to show you that, yes, they will be coming. And also, I got told by my brother, Kanag, that when they say 140 to 270, that could actually change depending on circumstances. Because the time factor for their vibration is about 15 years, I think, to 80, I think it is, years of human time. So that means they could be here within, say, 90 years.
I don't follow.
No, what I'm saying is that their vibration as a time factor, if we look at it as a time factor, vibrates very differently to the time factor that's vibrating on this planet. If 140 years had gone past here, maybe only 21 years has gone past on Nicaris. It's a different vibration, a different dimension. They're higher vibrating beings. So the time factor in reality doesn't exist anyway. But if we compare it, that's where the difference is. So if they say from Earth time, it could be 140 to 270, it could be like, say, 80 to 140 or 160. So there's a difference.
But it's good news, right? Like all of this
Absolutely.
gets fixed up when they come.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, these buggers, the greens and the whites, they will run like hell. If they saw, they got found out that there's the car on ships above space, they will run like hell. They're coming here to literally globalize humanity. They will lose everything that they've worked for. They'll have no power whatsoever. And if they know the Nicarons are coming, because the Nicarons have been watching them. They've been watching them, but it's only now recently that they've taken this really dramatic step because they want complete control. And one other thing I've got to say, governments of this earth don't realize they will have no more power. And what will happen is the big business people will set up their own governments under their ruling and run the world.
When is this isn't to do with the Nicarans, this is to do with the Reptilians taking over.
This is to do with these white beings. They're the ones that are going to do it. They're the ones that are going to control all governments through manipulation of fear, and eventually they will create their own type of governments that will dissolve all other governments worldwide in time. How long that time factor is, to be honest, I have no idea. I cannot even fathom when that might happen. But if the Nakarons are coming here within 140 to 270 years, it's just so hard to even try to predict that. So I have to just let that be.
Yeah, but we know at some point that's likely,
Yes,
isn't it? Yeah,
absolutely.
And it cleans it all up. And I don't like the monetary system no longer existing is so positive for all of us, isn't it?
Absolutely. People who are wealthy, really wealthy, they would just, they would probably want to, like strangle me or whatever because they're so materialistic. But what they don't realize is that when you give equality to everyone and everyone works for each other, there is harmony and peace. No race has ever suffered financially or physically or emotionally or mentally that have dumped their monetary system and their governments. By creating what Nakarons have as councils all over the planet, those councils collect data from the people, put it into files, and forward it through computers to the main council in the main city, and then it's all looked upon over a period of time, and then one massive council meeting is created where all people come, that whoever wants to come. There could be like, say, 5-10 million people in this one area because it's so massive. I mean massive. And everyone can hear what's going on. Or they sit at home and listen because it all goes public. Not like here where the governments hide behind their little doors in their, what do they call those, government rooms, and they're in conference and they all hide and no one knows what's going on. None of the general public ever know, which is not right because we own the government. They don't own us. We own the government. We put them there. Yes.
Well, this concludes the mammoth episode, The World Conspiracy. Thank you so much, Kuntarkis, for all that you've shared. And if you are interested in seeing this picture, you can find it on our Facebook page, Kuntarkis, there'll be a link in the description. Also a link in the description for finding it and a little bit of a write-up by Kuntarkis on his website, etcconsciousness.com. Simply go there and then click on Top Stories and then The World Conspiracy. So that's it for now. Thanks so much for listening. My name is Michael Yon, and stay tuned for the next one.